podcast number 16, I spoke with Adria Piñol. He's promoting mindfulness, kindness, and self-awareness through art. Please enjoy whatever you listen to of this podcast. So the first question that I have for you is, do you like when I look at your Instagram, not always, but often I'll see some kind of either Buddhist iconography or Buddhist symbology or Buddhist images. So my first question for you is, how did you first kind of come across Buddhism, and how do you see Buddhism affecting your art? Yeah, that's the first question I have.
Well, it's the first question it has a very long answer, but I'll try to be short and concise.
Okay.
And I started getting interested in Buddhism in 2005. And for a while, it was just understanding the material, no? The concepts and everything. And I was doing more abstract works at that time that had just more of a appeal of the abstract expressionism.
Okay,
and
so
has without any context of anything deeper, just making quote unquote nice pictures. But I started to, when I went deep and deep to learning, and when I started to go to find some masters and all this, I realized that there were key concepts that were so interesting and spark curiosity to how do I interpret via art, my way, these concepts. And I started with the consciousness and the concept that in Buddhism, the consciousness is something that travels. So it was like, to me, it started a new path that could go into art, meaning at that time also, later I was interested in the elements and all these kind of things
the
that
four
are
elements. I've
included
seen
in
that
Buddhism.
series. Yeah.
So I've tried to use my art to explore different themes that I was encountering and that were sparking ideas or things that I could translate on my own into an artistic point of view of mine. And from there, because everything still was very abstract, and I wanted to make it land or in some way, but also because these concepts, sometimes it's like when you've studied a little bit, you understand them, but then when you want to communicate with other people, you have to explain all the context, right? So sometimes it gets a little bit too brainy or I don't know,
too many
conceptualized,
concepts,
right?
yeah, too conceptual. Yeah.
So that's when I wanted to find some representation that was minimal but hit the spot, the target. And that's when I came up with the idea of the shape of the Buddha. That, to me, I wanted to have a representation more broader than just Buddhism, and I think I went far from where you were asking, but
so you started off with, before coming in contact with Buddhism or becoming interested in Buddhism, with abstract art, and then correct me if I'm wrong, but perhaps you were using art to understand life, and then when you're trying to understand the concepts of Buddhism, you're trying to understand them through making art. And then at a certain point you maybe decided, how do I represent Buddhism symbolically in the most minimalist way? And the image of the Buddha Buddha's body, perhaps, or the meditating Buddha was perhaps the key element that you kind of focused on. And I kind of see that you have like the meditating Buddha in many different forms in a lot of your pieces. Of course, not all of them, but that is a reoccurring theme that I see in your works. Yeah. Did I misunderstand anything that you said?
No, perfectly. You understood. Even I was rambling, you understood perfectly.
Okay. Did you want to speak any more on this, or do you want to jump to the next question?
Well, I don't know. Maybe we can jump to the next one.
Okay, so let's take a step away from Buddhism, and go somewhere a little bit different, but staying on theme with art for a second, and maybe it can tie back into Buddhism. So in maybe one or two of your posts, you mentioned in the quotations, your quotes next to your art, Leonardo da Vinci and the other artist, who was it? Let's see right here. I have it in my notes. Nikola Tesla. So I was kind of reading these quotes and, thinking about these two people. For me, they're both very brilliant individuals, but not people that I particularly connect to Buddhism. Um, I guess my question for you is, in your mind, what propelled these two people to become such brilliant people and to have such innovative ideas. And you also made another post that maybe connects to what I'm talking about here. You said you made a suggestion to contemplate and think about: are we listening to our own inner guidance, or are we just following the autopilot, the external murmuring that's occurring in our life? Do you feel like Nikola Tesla and Leonardo da Vinci were more connected with their internal guidance? And is that like our Buddha nature, or am I just making up stories that are like, what do you think of these two people and how they became so brilliant?
Well, first of all, let me mention that I've been using, maybe in the past, I was more focused on sharing my perspective only on Buddhism. So all the quotes and all the references were mainly Buddhist
Mm.
because I was focused on that. But in a way, I felt that I was not open to different, or I was putting myself in a box that was not really me, in the sense that I'm always been interested in these great people. Leonardo has been an inspiration forever. So it's like maybe I should show more of my interest in different ways, even though they don't connect specifically with Buddhism, right? And to me, also because I've started to realize that in the end, all these are labels. So we can see, like, to me, Nikola Tesla, Da Vinci, or even Gautama Buddha, in the end, we're all human beings that are in this planet. So it's like, okay, we put the labels so we can understand, but in the reality, I don't make a difference, or I try not to make a difference between them. When greatness is greatness, and when you are in front of an interesting idea or an approach, this thing catches my mind. And really, I think that these people, uh, these great persons, they were very more interested in the inner world, and listening to their insights, or what was, let's call it, like the calling, or where the vision led them. So that's what inspires me of them, and that's why I like to collect these bits of quotes that they've passed to us, and see how we can add to it. Yeah.
Great. So, what I'm hearing is kind of trying to get outside of the conceptual box of Buddhism and going beyond the labels and coming back to how people are people. They're human beings, and you know how are they getting in touch with that greatness and respecting that, appreciating it, admiring it, and acknowledging how it's inspiring, regardless of what the label is being put are on that human. Is that kind of
Exactly.
what you're touching on?
Yeah, that's the point because in the end, everybody has their things that they can resonate and they can be more helpful to you or your path, right?
Of
But
course.
in the end, we when we remove all the labels, it's just we're just here. We are all together in this. So it's like all the contributions that we can make to improve ourselves, our environment. So to me now it's everything works to feed me and get me inspired, and I try to also put different works out there that are not just for Buddhists, like
Mhm.
sometimes it's like, okay, let's be let's be more inclusive.
Yeah, I mean, your
And
recent
I'm
recent posts, your recent works surrounding what looks like the infinity symbol and the word
Yeah,
love, like this is much more of a universal kind of thing
yeah,
that's more contemporary that people can get in touch with. The infinity symbol is not necessarily and usually not traditionally at least, connected with the Buddhist conceptual box. It's pretty outside of it, but it's perhaps connected with that greatness. And love is so universal, and has roots in so many cultures all over the world. Yeah.
yeah. You see the what the I see the difference in me. It's that before I was trying to share the things I was passionate about. So at that time, I was very interested in Buddhism and sharing this knowledge. But at the same time, as I said, I thought that when you talk with somebody who has no interest in this philosophy, it's like, okay, uh, we are missing a piece of the conversation, right?
Yeah, there's a
So
disconnect between the
yeah,
humans. Yeah.
so that was something that even for a while I stopped focusing on this kind of art, because I was like really, I was not sure if I was doing, it was giving value to anything that I was doing creatively. So for a while I stopped and I had time to reflect, and during that time that I started to, well, let's say like practice more and trying to integrate different teachings and even with meditating more, I started to get these inspirations or these images that they show in my head.
Yeah.
And that was the origin of these new words, the infinite love and all these things. These were images that I felt like, okay, this is a message that it wants to go through me, and I'm gonna share it, even if it's out of character, if you want to say like that. So, and all the different messages or words that I'm starting to develop, even the new one that's still in the works, because spoiler alert, uh, it's gonna be I think I was also with the image of the Buddha. It was very one-sided, so I'm trying to be more incorporate the feminine energy
Okay.
and the concept of the Dakini that was also very fascinated since long time ago. So I'm just catching up with my own interests, and I'm trying to, in a creative way, show it and share it.
Cool. I look forward to checking that out. Um, okay, yeah, kind of what you're touching on here reminds me a little bit about Chogyam Trungpa and how when he came to the West, he found that his red Buddhist uh, monk robes were acting as more of a barrier between him and people, and not as much of a connector, a bridge between him and others. So by wearing Western clothing, he could be more connect. He could connect with people and have, yeah. Um, I don't know if you see what I'm touching on here. Maybe I'm making things more confused, but
No, I
you
understand. Yeah.
You posted one quote by Trungpa, and it said, "Back to square one." Chogyam Trungpa said that it seems to be the starting point of any genuine expression one might express. I'm inspired by the creativity of Trungpa, and how he was trying to kind of, in some ways, get out of the old traditions. I know there's certain teachers today in the West that are trying to come back to maybe this square one. Maybe I'm misusing the word square one. Please correct me if I am, but like, what is square one of Buddhism? You know, if we're trying to benefit people and the Buddhist symbology and iconography is not helping us to connect with people, and if it's not inspiring people, and if we appreciate the inspiration from others and we want to inspire others, then what, you know, it's like, it seems like you're already like trying to innovate and get in touch with your own inner wisdom to how can you really be of benefit to others, beyond the tradition, and coming back to what is square one. um, and maybe you can also touch a little bit on wabi sabi, and I don't know if that's entirely different or if wabi sabi is connected to square one at all. I know you have maybe some affinity or appreciation about wabi sabi, but maybe these are two separate categories.
Yeah, as you can see, I've I have many different interests,
Yeah.
and for a while, it seemed like it was not, well, I don't know for who, but it seemed like you should stay on your lane
Mhm.
and not mix, and but in reality, it was a little bit of limiting for myself because I enjoy so many different things and I like to play with them, mix them, and see if something interesting can happen, right?
Yeah.
So I've been fascinated by Japanese culture and wabi sabi, and um, even I'm also working a different project that it's taking longer, but I'm still working about the Shibui aesthetics and all these concepts that they fascinate me, and I'm very interested by the way the artisans work and all these things. So I'm just trying to uh, by little, trying to get there, right? When I read Trumpa's words, the way I interpreted them, because this is also very free. Maybe I'm not a very I'm not a studious or a scholar, so maybe I do my own interpretations and maybe I also get it wrong. But for what I understood, it was this new, let's say, this new chapter was ignited by his words and his book. Um, when he was, or I understand that he was saying that art is everything. Our lives are a work of art, and everything can be art. He was talking about the floral arrangements and everything, right? So to me, that was a very eye-opening because I was never thinking about this idea or this option. So um, after reading his words, I try to incorporate this. That's why I open and say, okay, so I'm going to use everything that creatively interests me. I'm going to play with it and see what happens, um, and not limit myself just because I have some interest in Buddhist literature,
Literature, yeah.
yeah, and the philosophy or the techniques, right? Because in the end, what I would like to do is have a conversation with the art and not limit, like mm, be open and share what I feel, and maybe it can resonate with somebody else that has, well, the goal would be to bring benefit, right? To serve uh, with the art or inspire. I don't know what can be done with the art. Sometimes I think there are other things that are more helpful, but that's my passion, and I don't know how to. I would love to translate it in a way that it also brings value and and is of value, right?
Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, we want to try to bring value to the world and inspire others and benefit others. And
Yeah.
you're finding what's inspiring you. And just like a cook plays with different recipes, um, maybe you're in, like, to stay within the metaphor of cooks and cooking, maybe you're inspired by the food of Tibet and Japan, and you've learned how to cook these two different foods, and now you're like, why not try to experiment with mixing some of this together, not from a place of disrespect, but from a place of
Mm-hmm.
wanting to experiment, and who knows what could happen from that creative place. Maybe a beautiful mistake may arise, and from that something may be birthed, a new dish, a Tibetan Japanese dish that's coming from a man from Spain. And this is obviously a metaphor, but taking
Yeah.
moving the dish of food back to art, and then hope, and then this, you create this for the world, then maybe other people come in contact with it from Spain or from another country, wherever, and they find inspiration. Yeah, this is
Yeah,
awesome.
in a way, that's what I was thinking when he was saying back to square one, right? It's like removing all that all these walls that we have built that there it doesn't need to be or to have, with he's changing his attire and all these things. It's like breaking these invisible walls that we build around us, and sometimes that's what I was trying to say, like we limit ourselves to have a conversation with somebody, to learn something else or be open to new ideas, or and that's why I'm trying to incorporate all the things, like the different quotes, Da Vinci's, and everything that moves the needle a little bit to the higher vibrations, and to it can resonate with different people.
Totally. I like how you're so focused on getting inspired. That totally is fuel and fires our hearts up to keep us being positive about life. And so that's, yeah. So lately I've been seeing, that you've been focusing on quite a bit of poetry. Has poetry always been a part of your life? Would you call your words, it seems like you're a bit of a wordsmith. Would you call your words poetry, or is that just another label? Is it coming kind of from your heart and from a place of inspiration, and it's more of a word expression rather than a visual artistic expression? Um, you want to speak on your
Well, as you
poetry?
can see, written word is better than speaking for me,
Yeah,
um, and because it has a different tempo, you can think more about it. And I was I've been always interested by lyrics from music, and I've been writing for many years, but nothing especially like, yeah, that I could be very proud of, but just one another thing to do that I enjoy doing, and I do it. Um, and I had this idea to be more involved, and again going back to not limiting myself, and wanting to be more creative, and everything that just pops into my head I try to make it, because in a way it's like also for myself it's like going every day to work and doing something, trying to create something from nothing every day. It's a very nice sensation and feeling, right? um, the words, it's like some themes that they inspire me, or something that I want to see how it can rhyme, or how it can focus the mind in some way. But it would be more like a game than something that I'm thinking a lot about it, right?
yeah. It's kind of more playful and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, coming from a
Yeah,
place
that's
of
something that I'm
inspiration.
trying to incorporate now. It's more fun and having not so serious sometimes. For a while I thought that art needed to be very serious and very thought and a lot of, and I think that I was missing on the enjoyment and having fun and playing with words, playing with images, playing at the end is playing, and trying to with the play to bring some concepts of idea forward and share it.
Yeah. Even your typography, your fonts, the smaller and bigger letters, your color choices, and the kind of background, artistic expression, it's all pretty playful and yeah, pretty beautiful stuff.
Thank you, appreciate it. And these are things that I was doing on my own, but keeping on my notebook, keeping
Yeah.
uh so it's like, okay, now it's like I'm gonna put it out there. Also, it gives you like, mm, I don't know, the sense of being true to yourself and not um remove giving you wings, right? To continue to be inspired and don't keep the muses happy that you are doing the work.
Yeah. Okay, so the last thing I want to touch on with the last maybe like 5 minutes or so is on, I don't know, correct me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. The Beyul, this kind of like secret Tibetan place, the Beyul,
Yeah,
is that it?
Beyuls.
So I think in one of your posts you typed up some words next to it about the Beyul, and I've listened to some of
Mm.
Dr. Ian Baker's talks lately talking about the Beyul. I'm gonna just read some of his quotes, and maybe we can talk a little bit about Beyuls. Um, it's something, first of all, that I've very inspired by this idea of the Beyul. So he said, Dr. Ian
Me
Baker
too.
said, they are, yeah, that's because I feel like you're maybe inspired by it too. That's why I wanted to bring it up in our
Hmm.
talk. So he said that the Beyuls, they are intermediary lands between the material world and the spiritual reality. And he said that there are Beyul everywhere on the earth. And he said that Beyul are temporary. They arise in the world and then they pass away. And he said, according to some Tibetan texts, books, um, there needs to be psychoactive plants. I think that's psychedelic plants that are growing around the region of the Beyul. And the combination between psychedelic plants and people's spiritual experience and that being kind of somewhat of a potential maybe doorway to the spiritual world from the physical world. And then this last quote from Dr. Ian Baker is not about Beyul, but it's kind of interesting and kind of relates to it a little bit. He said, the Vajra world is filled with magic and mystery. So I don't know. I'm inspired by the Beyul. I assumed that you are inspired by the Beyul. What is your thoughts of the Beyul? How are you inspired by it? And what do you think about the Beyul?
Well, for me, it's a fascinating idea and concept, and keeping my inner child very happy, in the sense that this fantasy or this the magical aspect of it and what it's explained in the literature of what it represents and everything. I was very fascinated, and of course, reading Ian's book, it was like a magical, like fascinating story, and looking for the mystery and the magic that was very appealing and inspiring. And yeah, I wanted, again, going back to playing, and I wanted to play with that image because it was very interesting to me, because it was just the sun shining between some bamboos, and and it was like, it really seemed like there is a door there, an opening that gives
Mm-hmm.
you access to a different planet, right? Even
Mm-hmm.
with that, when I saw that movie, I think, if I don't remember correctly, Shangri-La, based
Mm-hmm.
on that old book, that they arrive and cross the mountains and they see a magical, full of nature place. That's an idea that always captured my imagination, and I find it very interesting, and I don't know if it's real or not, but I would really like to see some of these ideas, these concepts, like making it, as you said, or the quote said, that they are everywhere. So it's like, okay, we don't have to go to these mountain passages or have these arduous travels. So we can maybe even access them from where we are, right? From just going to nature.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I mean, I agree. It's important to keep our inner child happy. You know, it's important to stay playful. It's important to find inspiration and to try to find those magical parts of life. And regardless of whether the Beyul is real or not,
Yeah.
the fact that it inspires us and captures our imagination and brings us back to this childlike, playful state, um, that helps us to be able to re-express that in our art, and maybe that will inspire some people, and maybe our art is a doorway to a Beyul of
Mm-hmm.
our inner child, our inner playfulness, and to not take life too seriously in the face of life's hardships and difficulties and suffering.
Exactly.
But anyways, I don't know if there's anything else you want to say. All I can say is thank you for being open to having this conversation with me, Adria, and I've really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, just thank you. Uh, I really enjoyed also talking with you, getting to meet finally. And yeah, thank you for the work you're doing also with the podcast and your art, and also trying to, share your path and your creativity. I enjoyed very much.
If you have any interest in checking out the art that Adria is making, please click on the Instagram link in the description box below this video. It will take you straight to his art. Thank you. Thanks for checking out this podcast. Have a nice day.